Well, good morning. Yeah, you're not going to see me on camera today. I got my camera set up on my other screen, and we are going to visualize my idea of why I do what I do. I know some are pretty corny and goofy and kind of out there, but those are just words. The whole idea behind this is just hoping maybe I could generate something to create something that would last forever. And that would be a free food forest. Now, I understand the thoughts that run through people's heads when they hear stuff like this. Trust me, I've tried talking to people, and it's not their fault, but they're being blocked. I don't know. It's an vague answer, I know, but it's about all I'm willing to give right now. But I wanted to get this information out. I don't know how this is going to work, if it's going to be sent over the internet, if anybody's going to share, take the time to even go through this, because this is going to be kind of long, because I don't have it like written down. I'm just kind of doing it from my mind. I've been thinking about this for a very long time. I had a very mystical experience. I'm going to that some other time, because that's real emotional. It really is. This is a beautiful place that we live in, and I'm not going to carry tones, because words, you got to be careful of words. Words, it's spelling, it spells, that's what they are. I mean, it may sound childish and goofy, but it is. We take these words in, and they carry a tone, and it does affect our bodies. It just does. It does. It so does. I mean, we know this. We know this. I know that you know this. We do that to babies because it's soothing. It's a tone. It's a comfortable tone. Now, on this free food forest, I want to build it. I really do. I want to build it. I don't want a car. I don't want a mansion. I don't want fancy clothes. As you see, I wear the same clothes every day. Yes, I do wash them. But I have just the things I need, so I can stay focused on at least getting one of these built. The idea behind it is complex. I mean, if I choose a word that you would understand, would be complex. But I want to remove the word difficult from that vocabulary. Complex to what we're normally used to. But easy for you to understand. You'll get it in a second. That's my new version of it. Because words lock you down. They so do if you let them. But anyways, so you got a free food forest. Just think of a park in your mind that has trees in it that produce apples and pears and whatever else. And if it doesn't grow there, very easy. One state talks to another state. Hey, I'm going this way. People travel all the time. Hey, I'll bring you some oranges. Hey, I'll bring you some apples back. On the fruits and vegetable part, when you get your fruits and vegetables from the store, they're picked 7 to 10 days early. I don't know exactly which one. I did not test them. This is just what I've researched. They have no enzymes in them, so they are robbed from the body to digest. That can't be good. But if anybody, like I've been trying for a year. I've been making Packer songs and And, I don't really put a whole lot of effort into it. I really don't. I do one take, and that's it. I lay it down. My equipment is not up to par. It cuts out every time I hit a high note. But this thing, I want to say costs money, but it's more than money. I know why people don't give up their money at all. Man, it's in your tissue. It's in your heart. It's in everything. I know why people don't give up their money. But this thing, it would cost your life force instead of money, because that's what it is. I mean, you could say money, I'll say life force, because that's what it is. But it would cost your life force to build this thing. But it would last for a very long time. Apple trees will last 100 years. I believe they produce 60. At 30 feet in diameter, they'll produce over 1,100 pounds. But this is the key to the concept. So this is the reason why this might be a little long, because I want to say it, and then I want to show you why I say it. And this is still, it's still open. It's not a shut mind. When I talk to people, they freak out, and they're like, oh, and I'm not going to go there because that's a negative tone. That's my fault. It's early in the morning. So you got your free food forest, you got your apple trees, you got your pears, you got all that, but you're still in a park. You still got power lines that run underneath the ground. That has an effect on the body. We are electrical, chemical, electric first. Not according to me, according to your science. Now, there's a lot of pressure and tone in that when I say that, and I want to explain why. Well, when you get a tester and you test on the second floor, this is from a video that I seen. You can get a tester. It is a multimeter. I'd have to get the settings for it, but if you look up body voltage, you can figure it out on YouTube. It was 15 volts. And the first thought was in my head is, well, if that guy's got 15 volts running through him, what about a pregnant child? I mean, that's huge. 15 volts, that's not supposed to be going through our bodies. That has an effect. Neurons use electrical signals to communicate. That's from a teacher's manual for the human brain. And I also have the book called The Brain. It was a PBS special. But, so, you got the ground lines. If you do build one, make sure you have no 60 hertz in there. The reason why I say that as well, I have a document somewhere, but 60 hertz is classified from the government. It causes damages to cells. The reason why I say that as well is I go back to MIT just released that they can manipulate, I can't think of what it is, it's part of the body with radio signals. That's from them, not me. Now I know there's more pressure in there, but I'm thinking of little babies. That's just me. Little babies are getting hit with this. And then, I can go into HARP and all this other stuff. That's still frequency, and the reason why I say that is I would back up on what Nikola Tesla said. Not what I said, what Nikola Tesla said. He said that the human brain, or the human emotion, could be controlled with electricity. He stated that, not me. He did. So, no 60 hertz in that food forest. Small dwellings for people to live in. No plastic at all. That stuff, it's got fumes. It causes problems. So you have small dwellings for people to live for free in there. I would say clay. I would definitely say clay, because it's returnable. So you have clay little buildings that people can stay in for free. They have nothing to work on. They can just live there. That's it. No wraparound worker, no social worker, no get a job, no nothing. Just rest. Now you're thinking, Well, what do they do for the economy? You know what they do? And I know there's pressure there because I'm thinking of babies. You know what they do? They stop polluting the planet because that's what a job does. I know it may sound harsh, but that's what it does. I ain't trying to put you down. I'm just trying to see. Now, you got no 60 hertz in there. You got small dwellings. Water. That would be the next thing. Distilled water. Yes, I understand. People will say you'll leach minerals out of your body. Inorganic minerals. Check out Weber. Andrew Norton Weber. The water thing is important, and we're going to see a video on that shortly. So, distilled water. No 60 hertz. No Wi-Fi. Yes, no Wi-Fi. That has an effect, and that is by your MRI. When a child uses a cell phone, it takes over 2 hours for their brain waves to come back to normal. This is huge. This affects melatonin. These are just words. I have to throw that in there because people are gonna hold me to words. Melatonin is a word that you guys made up. That is a fact. That is the only fact. These words are all made up. Now, back to the food forest. No Wi-Fi, no 60 hertz, distilled water. Any of you guys that have millions of dollars can make this. People will get healthier. And then you have something to reflect on. You can have no faith or anything that this will work. But you can build this and see it. So, no 60 hertz, distilled water, no Wi-Fi. And I'm trying to think of one more thing. Ah, yes. And a sweat lodge with distilled water, volatile pollutants from tap water. All right, I think I got everything. That's pretty much it. Yes, I think that would be beautiful because that would free up jobs for the people who don't want to do this, because those people can go there and rest. Now you can see. I hope you can see the vision on this and not seeing this as being lazy, because it's far from being lazy. Now these people can sit there and rest. I don't know how many you can fit in there, but all these people can rest and feel love and have their bodies heal. And now they have time. They have this time to think of other ways to help people or to show them that this works. Another one would be to add in, for an added benefit, would be to make another building with an Oregon accumulator. Royal Rife. Or, no, I take that back. I'll think of his name in a second here. Actually, I'm looking it up. Can't believe I forgot his name, too. And this guy, I couldn't believe when I started reading his stuff. It just shows that there is something out there, and we can grab a hold of it and bring it back to life. So, we'll take my mug off here, and we are going to check out some water. Yeah, this water thing. I guess seeing is believing.
Today I'm going to show you the difference between distilled water, reverse osmosis filtered water and regular tap water. I will apply two methods to do this. The first one involves the use of a TDS meter. TDS stands for total dissolved solid, and this particular device is actually capable of showing you the total amount of dissolved solids in your water. The measuring unit is ppm, which stands for parts per million, and it's actually the equivalent of milligram per liter. And the second method I will use will involve the use of electrolysis. I will use my electrolyzer to actually separate the constituents of water, thus making everything that is within the water visible, so that you can actually see what you drink every time you drink directly from your tap. So, let us begin. Alright, so now I'm going to submerge my TDS meter into all three types of water, and so can actually see a digital number of the amount of total dissolved solids. So let's start with the distilled water. As you can see, the amount of dissolved solids is 0 parts per million in distilled water. Now let's move on to the water which is filtered with reverse osmosis. Now, as you can see, it has 27 parts per million, which means there's 27 milligrams per liter of total dissolved solid. And let's move on to the regular tap water, which is not filtered in any way. Yes, so the total dissolved solid within the unfiltered tap water is 247. And you must remember that it actually includes all types of chemicals, heavy metals such as fluoride, aluminum, and so on. So let's move on to the second stage. Now I will perform electrolysis to actually allow you to see what is within your tap water. Alright, now I'm going to start the process of electrolysis. On the right you can see a glass full of distilled water, and on the left you can see the regular unfiltered tap water. So let's get it started. I will give you a closer look. So, as you can see, the distilled water didn't change at all, while the regular tap water has turned into a green and brownish glue full of these delicious and tasty spots. And this is actually what you drink every time you drink from your tap water. So yes, alright, basically that's what I just wanted to show you.
Alright, we just seen that. It's fresh in your mind. Now that is the reason why I say no 60 hertz and no Wi-Fi. Now let me break down Wi-Fi for you a little bit, because I do know a little bit about it. I built myself a Cantana. Now this was, I want to say, for words, shamanic experience, I guess, an epiphany, whatever you want to call it, a brain fart, I don't know, a brain fart of an idea. Okay, so I built a Cantana. Now for a driver, that's what they call it. You need an element, which is copper. You need copper to receive a Wi-Fi signal. Now, if you have the bigger one, like the Cantana I built out of a coffee can, I had the bigger one. Now, if you would aim that at an animal, you would cook the insides of it, because it is microwaves. Okay, now keep that concept in your mind. Copper is an element. Copper is in our diet. Now, here's a big one for you. I wish I had the resources of, I want to say money again. I don't like saying that. I really don't. Your soul. I wish I had more soul power, I guess, because copper is sprayed on strawberries. And Wi-Fi is everywhere. Now, the question that got thrown to me, I don't sit here and wake up and go, oh, I need to think about this. These are things that are thrown at me, just like Nikola Tesla. Copper pennies, they were removed. Now, the question I would like to ask the government was, were they removed because of Wi-Fi? Now, here's another thought for you. Keep it in your mind. Wi-Fi and that green, nasty water. He got that from running electricity through it. The guy in the video that I'll show you next has 15 volts running through him. I made a song about it too. The shootings that happened in the school, they should be remapped on which ones had Wi-Fi in them. The reason why I say that, this isn't my stuff. This is the stuff that I researched, because I want this planet to live. But there's certain things that need to be in place for that to happen. And to me, having a place where you can heal is number one. This is the reason why I say those schools should be looked at that had shootings for Wi-Fi. This is called the active denial system. Now, they have a smaller version of this that's available in police cars, and they actually have them installed in California police stations. You can't read any of that, but you can look this up. Yeah, you're not going to be able to read any of this. But there is a thing called Silent Guard. And we are electrical, chemical. And then you go back to HARP as well. they're running at different frequencies as well. Then you go back to Herta Clark, and she was killing parasites with certain frequencies, and she also said that this thing could be used as a weapon. She said it in one of her interviews. God bless her heart. And she also said something about making a resistor to resist it, which is called a choke inductor coil, which I've been looking it up. I know how to make it, I just don't have the money or resources or the tools to actually test it to make sure it works right. And then, okay, so you've seen the water, you've seen what happens when electricity passes through it. I would like to test this, but to me, in my mind, and what I've experienced for being on distilled water for as long as I have, there is some truth to it. But there's so much more. I don't like to put this in stone because your chi is so powerful. That's why people don't do anything. They have enough chi to sustain and feel good. This is the Oregon accumulator. It's a simple box. It's easy to make. I tried making one out of my whole house, or my whole room, my house. I have a small room. It's like a 10 by 10, I think, or maybe a little bit bigger than that. I like to be humble. The less stuff you have, the less problems you have, and the less pulling of just stuff. Get this, pick this up, live up with the deets is just thoughts that are not yours, and it's caused by all these pollutants. I can go back to gut bacteria. It actually controls your mind. It makes you crave certain things. But so you got your free food forest, no 60 hertz, no Wi-Fi, distilled water, a sweat lodge. And I think that's pretty much it. I think that would be a good basis for an option, just an option for people to have. I mean, the possibilities of this is just tremendous. To give an opportunity, I mean, people with sick children can bring them there and try it out. I mean, they got nothing to lose. I guess, oh, yes, I'm going to go into the harp thing a little bit before I end this, because it is getting kind of long. And I think I pretty much covered everything. I mean, this stuff, it's not mine. This stuff is yours. And it has some validity. We are electrical chemicals, so it does have effects. And this is the wrong heart project. I can see that already. Yeah. But I do want to show you this, because this is important. Important. Another word. This is just information. There's 3 states that I try to keep people out of, which is not always easy when you're being pushed, is to not keep you in flight, fright, or stare. Those 3 stages, you stop digesting your food. That's according to your science. Let's see if I can zoom in on this so you can get a little bit of a read on it, maybe. Roger Weaver. Maybe I can put it up there. He did a time-isolated experiment. I guess I can kind of read it for you. Well, I know it because I read it so many times. I'll just leave it over here. Well, he did this time-isolated. I didn't know it was 418 students. But anyways, he did this experiment. and it's called the Akkadian rhythm, I believe. It's based on the Schumann resonance. Well, he pulled this frequency away, and people got sick. They got sick. He did this in an underground bunker at Max Planck Institute. Man, I'm pretty good. I can't believe I remember that. Alright, enough tooting my own horn. So, these kids got sick. So then what he does is he still leaves them down there, but he turns on a box. It produces 7.8 hertz, which I believe is correct for the Schumann resonance. I'm going to check. And he did this for a long time, too. I want to make sure that that's right. 7.83 hertz. Yep. So he turns this on. Now, they're not... their biological clock is completely screwed up. And light exposure, everything. Just like a plant. Just like a plant. You stress out a plant, it'll become a hermaphrodite. You stress it out, it will get sick. So, he turns on his box, they get better. They get better. Now, with Wi-Fi, that actually affects your pineal gland. Words, just what people say. But it affects your pineal gland. So, you got this guy who does this experiment at a, college, Max Planck Institute. Right there. There it is. Not my stuff. But, yeah. I think a ghoul would be nice. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I don't have any reason to put trust in any company at all for this fact right here. I mean, this should be plastered all over the place. Oh, you can't even read it. Well, it's corporate personhood. Basically, it says that all corporations have the right to lie. All of them do. They have the right to lie, and they also have the right to tell their employees to lie. That they have that right. Like, you can lose your job over that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think our children deserve not to work. That's just me. Or I should say an opportunity to just be and, I don't know, have the opportunity to think and help the planet. Just by being helps the planet. You figure you're there, you got fruits, vegetables, you could grow your own clothes, which is still food, by the way. Yeah. I don't know. That's my goal. That's what I want to work towards. If you just did apples, let's say, because it's better that way. Oh, yeah. That's another thing I want to touch on. Watch how plants grow in nature and copy that. The stuff that we do, it's not good. Here's the thought for you. Not to scare you at all. Just to lift the veil just a tiny, tiny bit. Because there's still information that still needs to be brought in. This is just based on your stuff. But if people talk about GMO on how it damages people, genetically modified food, they say on how it damages people and how it explodes insects in the guts of animals and all that. They state all this. Now, I don't know if any of it's true. They show me stuff, they make these statements, and then I make a statement, and this was on a radio show, and it was dead silence, and they didn't know what to say. Like, don't like putting words on things. You were going to handle this, and you're going to let it pass, and you're going to go do something fun afterwards. But it's just there. And we don't know. We don't know this for a fact. So, At least I don't know it for a fact. But you got genetically modified food. They say that there's 80% in the grocery store. Okay, so you consume that, you have bowel movements, that goes into your sewer, you throw your food away, that goes into the landfill, insects are eating it, and they are way, way smaller than us. So if it's affecting us on this large scale, what kind of damages is it doing to them? Now, I think, just based on what I've seen from film, and I have to emphasize that, from film and what people say, I want to test these so bad because our children depend on it. But let's look at the bee thing. I mean, you got your GMO all over the place. We changed the soil bacteria. That's another information I got. But the bees. Now, from what I've heard, and I don't know if it's all beekeepers, so don't come after me, but they use powdered sugar to feed them. They use corn syrup to feed them. I've seen these in videos, so these are unnatural things that are being fed. Probably not a good idea, seeing they pollinate so much, according to your science. I still don't know. I mean, trust me, I've seen pollen on bees. I understand that. But when you take frequencies, now this is based on an infomercial. Whoever thought an infomercial would actually be viable. But you remember the cockroach one where you plug in the thing in the wall and it sends cockroaches off? Well, go back to Herta Clark. That's what she was doing with parasites and everything else. And so you got those frequencies. I lost my train of thought. I have to be honest. I did. I had it. But, yeah, the bees. Man, the bees, man. I can't believe I forgot about the bees. Even Einstein, supposedly, I don't know if that's his quote. I looked over the internet, but he said that, if we didn't have bees, we ain't going to be around. Well, supposedly they're disappearing. With the free food forest, we would so find out. Now, I hope you can fill me on that, because we would so find out. No 60 hertz, no Wi-Fi there, fresh fruits and vegetables, non-GMO. This is the eye-opener. Let's build it. This is the eye-opener. This is the thing that does our debating for you. This is the thing that we honor. Don't honor me. Honor this thing. This thing will take care of your children. Not your car, not your insurance, not your job, but this planet. Plain and simple. But this ghoul, this would rock. This would so rock. Because then this way, when people start getting better, people are going to start asking questions about the things that they use. Now, go grab your cell phone manual. Go look in there and read up on what the safe distance of your phone is. And I'm going to leave you with, after you read that, I'm not going to leave you high and dry. I'm going to leave you with the name of the lady that you are going to want to get to know. And she's not in this folder. I'll give you another guy, though. And this guy works for free. So if you have a lawsuit that you want to do, which I don't suggest you do, because that's
Welcome, Barry Trower, to White TV.
draining of
It's a
energy.
very big honor for us
Just draining of energy.
to take your time and give us an interview. We are a big admirer of yours and your courage that you go out with the message that there.
It was a small part of my work. I learned of the dangerous frequencies being used in other countries, because all countries were experimenting, as they are today. I had a list of about 30 frequencies that could cause about 50 serious neurological and physical, including cancer.
They can induce cancer.
Yeah. For instance, 6.6 pulses or modulations a second can induce sexual aggression in men. Other pulses can make you feel suicidal. Other pulses can make you indecisive, lethargic. You can have pulses that will affect your vision because it interferes with the natural frequency of the eye. You can affect the heart quite easily. You can affect the glands.
Make a heart attack.
Oh yeah, yep. You can also affect the glands in the body and change the hormone levels that will then change the behavior. So I did this for 11 years. I mean, I knew then about 30 pulse frequencies. Now they have a list of about 600. And they can be delivered to anybody, anywhere, by any government, even people who don't like day or night, when you're sleeping, walking around. The technology is there. And it is a perfect weapon because most of the time you don't know you're being attacked. And a tremendous success for a government is if they pick on a lady or gentleman unsuspecting and they can pulse that lady or gentleman's brain, cause a known psychiatric disorder, paranoid schizophrenia. They go to a psychiatrist, they are diagnosed, they are referred to a psychiatric hospital where they can still be targeted, and they can spend the rest of their life in a padded cell or in a psychiatric hospital, and that is a success.
Without being sick.
Without being sick. And if they just turned the frequency off, they would recover. That is a success. And we're not talking one person here, we're talking hundreds of thousands over 40, 50 years in many countries, hundreds of thousands. And the race is on to find the perfect microwave weapon where you can just, almost like a radio, tune the dial for aggression, suicide, whatever.
I heard about that there are already technical devices. You hang it around your neck, a little pulled here, and then you can have some sparks and steer. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't heard of those, no.
We had in Stockholm in Sweden a horrible case some years ago where a man took the car into the pedestrians zone where no cars are allowed in the old town of Stockholm, and he killed a lot of people by just taking the car and going driving over them. And he said to his excuse, there was a man in the corner behind me who had this, and he steered me.
There are ways. I haven't heard of that method, but I have heard of other methods where people can be reprogrammed to do, for an experiment, to do what the government wants them to do. And in fact, it's incredibly easy. You can break the average person down for total reprogramming in just 30 hours. And that's without pain, without hypnosis, without drugs. The average person can be broken down in 30 hours. Usually, all they have to do is put you into a cell, no food, no water, no sound, and you're in total darkness, absolute darkness, no sound, no water, nothing. And within 30 hours, you are hallucinating, really hallucinating. Then, and this is so easy, I mean, I could do it. And then with, they call it synthetic telepathy. Microwaves can go right into the brain, and you hear a voice. And the psychiatrists beforehand, or the investigators, they would know a voice which you found comforting. Now, for a lady, it may be, if she loved her grandfather, it would be her grandfather's voice.
Oh, really?
If you are religious, it would be an angel, or Jesus, or Mohammed, or somebody. But when you've been in for 30 hours, and you're hallucinating, then the voice comes in. And of course, they can do this straight through the wall.
Yes.
The voice comes in, very soft, very soothing, very calming. Are you in trouble? I really am so sorry. Let me help. And over months or years, however long it takes, you will come just to rely on this voice. And if you don't do what this voice suggests, then the voice disappears and you're back in trouble. So you learn, a bit like heroin, you learn to depend on this very friendly voice. And if you talk to the voice and you're agreeable with the voice, you get food and you get light and then when you go home, the voice can wake you up in the middle of the night when you're sleeping and ask you questions, and then once you are absolutely, totally dependent on the voice, like heroin, it can say, now, the problem that you've been through was caused by, and it could be a religious sect, it could be a group of people.
Yeah, they always come with a false
a group of people, dark-skinned, fair-skinned, whatever, but it will be somebody. And they would say, now what I need you to do is help us defeat these people. And the next thing you've got is a bomber or a murderer, and it can be done.
For example, Mikhailo Mikhailovich, he was convicted of killing the Swedish Foreign Minister Anna Lindh in 2003.
Yep.
And he said, I had so strong voices in my head, they gave the order to kill her.
Yep.
And that was for me a clear evidence that he was mind controlled, that he is innocent, he was just a tool.
Yep, but of course you can't prove it. And the government will say you're mad, lock him away.
Yes.
But it's a success. And if you wanted a single person, all you have to do with the person is say, well,
now I want you to keep that part where he talks about the hallucination part. There's a book called Bread of Dreams. Kind of talks about like the myth age when they tripped out. I'm trying to find Wheat Belly because he does explain on what they did with schizophrenic patients. They removed wheat from their diet and they got better. But I'd like you to hear the part where he talks about how it causes irregular thoughts. He does make a point, even though he makes a joke about it. It's in Twizzlers.
New ways to increase crop yield. So this is one such research group. These are grown men standing in a field in Mexico City, east of Mexico City. The guy on the far right is Dr. Norman Borlaug. He's a geneticist trained at University of Minnesota. And they're standing in a field of wheat. These are fully grown men. Notice that this wheat is about shoulder high, right? So they started with traditional strains of wheat, standing shoulder high. Well, Borlaug was a pretty hard-working, smart guy. And he used a variety of techniques, because he was kind of the guy who drove a lot of this. They repetitively mated different strains of wheat from different parts of the world with different characteristics. They would repetitively back-cross them to try to select out certain characteristics. They would mate their wheat strains with other grasses to introduce unique genes. They would use different conditions to generate different characteristics. So thousands, literally thousands of genetic experiments to yield variant strains. And he was successful. So this is the cover of Life magazine from 1970. This was just after Dr. Borlaug was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for this work. So he's holding several stalks of his high-yield semi-dwarf strain. Notice that you can't judge this from where he's holding his hands, but notice that the stalks, that is, the shaft, is very thick. Notice that the seed heads are really big and the seed head itself is very large. So this thing yielded 4 times more per acre, 6 times more per acre, 8 times more per acre, as much as 10 times more per acre. So for that reason, when this was introduced into the third world, like Pakistan or Bangladesh, famine was converted to surplus within 1 year. So Borlaug was hailed as a hero for helping develop this high-yield, semi-dwarf strain of wheat. Okay, very different outward appearance, very different yield and other characteristics. Doesn't end there. Oh, and by the way, this is my stepson. He was 13 at the time. So this is about 5 miles from my house. I'm in Wisconsin. And it's everywhere. So it's not as if this is only grown in one place. This stuff has essentially taken over the world's wheat supply because it was so incredibly prolific. That is, if you're a farmer and you're getting, let's say, 8 bushels per acre, and your next door neighbor is using this other strain of wheat from seed he purchased, and he's getting 85 bushels per acre, how can you compete? So in a competitive world, you adopt this high-yield strain. So the world has essentially lost the older forms of wheat and have adopted this high-yield semi-dwarf strain of wheat. And this is the field just a couple of miles, just a few miles from my house. So this went on farther. This is an example of something that's sold widely and grown widely in about 1 million acres now in the Pacific Northwest called Clearfield wheat. Let me tell you what Clearfield wheat is. It is a semi-dwarf strain of wheat, so it is just like the stuff that Borlaug came up with, but they did some things to it. They exposed the seeds and embryos to a chemical called sodium azide, which is an industrial toxin. Let me tell you about sodium azide. There have been instances of accidental human ingestion, and the poison control people say, if you witness an accidental ingestion, don't offer that person CPR. In effect, let them die. Because if you offer them CPR, you're going to die too. And if the victim vomits, don't throw the vomit in the sink, because it may explode. And that has actually happened. So you take this chemical, sodium azide, you expose wheat embryos or seeds to it, and you induce mutations. This is an ad from the BASF Corporation, that is the patent holder of Clearfield wheat. It is the product of enhanced traditional plant breeding methods. So what they've done here is they said, hey, our Clearfield, now grown on 1 million acres in the Pacific Northwest of the U.S., is not the product of that nasty genetic modification business. We only used enhanced traditional breeding methods. Okay? So this is the game. This is the game that agribusiness has been playing with you. That, yeah, wheat is not genetically modified. That's true. In the language of genetics, no gene splicing techniques were used to insert or remove a gene. Instead, these other techniques, like multiple crossings, back crossings, embryo rescue, chemical mutagenesis, that's what this is called, the purposeful induction of mutations using chemicals, gamma mutagenesis, high-dose X-ray mutagenesis. This is using gamma rays and X-ray to induce mutations. These are the techniques used that predate modern genetic modification. Very imprecise, crude, unpredictable techniques that are far worse than modern genetic modification. So I'm no defender of genetic modification, but the techniques of genetic modification are actually a substantial improvement over the techniques used to generate a lot of the older crops, including 40 years of wheat. So, what does our USDA do with this? They tell us, eat more of it, right? So, we're told that wheat and grains, they say grains, they don't say wheat, right? But how many here have had a breakfast of triticale? How about sorghum or millet? Well, all right, this is a smart crew. For the most part, when we talk about wheat, right, in North America certainly, I'm sorry, we're talking about grains, we're really talking about wheat for the most part. So over 90% of all grains consumed is wheat. So when the USDA says eat more grains, they really mean eat more wheat. So in the food pyramid, they advise us to eat about 60% of calories plus from wheat, and the more recent food plate, likewise. At least a quarter, more than a quarter of the plate occupied by wheat. So this thing, conceived by people like Dr. Borlaug for good purpose, not evil purpose, to increase yield, help solve world hunger, taken further by agribusiness, and then sold, and we're told to eat more. Well, why is that so bad? But let me digress just for a moment and make this point. So we're going to talk about why modern wheat has a few things wrong with it. But what this is not about is being gluten-free. I make that point right up front because, you know, I'm very grateful that I entered this conversation at a time where gluten-free is starting to become very, very popular, but for the wrong reasons. Okay? So there are people with celiac disease, that is intestinal destruction from the gluten, this protein in wheat. There's probably 8, 9, or 10% of other people who have a lesser form of sensitivity to this protein called gluten. I'm not talking to them. I'm talking about the other 90% of people, okay? So I'll make the point that no human, there's not a single human I've ever met who could get away with eating this thing created by the shenanigans of genetics, okay? But it's separate from the gluten-free discussion in many ways. So what's so bad about this thing that Dr. Borlaug and BASF and all those people came up with? What's wrong with it? Well, let's talk about the protein gliadin. So gluten, this thing you've heard about, a protein in wheat, is really a two-part protein. It's got glutenin. You ever see a pizza maker do this, right, with dough? What else does that? Can you do that with cornstarch or rice starch? No. You'd have a mess, right? So the glutenin polymer has that unique, what the bakers call viscoelasticity. It gives that stretchy characteristic that almost nothing else has. Well, that's the glutenin in wheat. Well, the non-stretchy protein is another protein in gluten called gliadin. And gliadin is the thing you want to, if there's one thing you and I take away from all this, it is there's something wacky about that gliadin. Well, back in the 70s, it became clear. There were several psychiatric groups here in the UK who made this observation. If they take their patients, this was years ago, so 40 plus years ago, when, right now if you go to the hospital, you have a nice private room or semi-private room, right? Do you remember the days where there were 40 patients with you in the same room? The big hospital wards? Well, back in those days, the psychiatric hospitals had closed large wards. So their patients could not come and go as they pleased, and everything was controlled. Their medications were controlled, their diet was controlled. Well, several psychiatric groups back then made this observation. If they took all the wheat out of the diet of their schizophrenic patients, they got a bunch better. They weren't cured, but their paranoia, their hallucinations improved dramatically. They'd add back the wheat, they'd get much worse. This is over 4-week periods. They would take the wheat away, they got better. Add it back, they get on again, off again, on again, off again. This was reproduced a number of times. So the people at the National Institutes of Health asked, why? What the heck is in bread or pretzels or cookies that causes schizophrenics to hallucinate? So this group, led by Dr. Christine Zedrew, boiled it down to the gliadin protein, that protein we're talking about. And this thing, upon digestion, enters your brain, and it acts as an opiate. It binds to the opiate receptors of the human brain. So the human brain is filled with so-called opiate receptors. That may not be the nature's intended effect, but that's how it plays out in real life. So if I take morphine, it provides pain, relief from pain. If I take heroin, it makes me high, it makes me goofy, and I can't control my thoughts or my behavior. If I take wheat, or the gliadin protein, the breakdown opiates of wheat, I don't get high, I don't have pain relief, I only get appetite stimulation. Okay, so it binds mostly to the kappa receptor and others. I don't get those other effects. I just get appetite stimulation. So this is one of those opiate proteins from wheat. This is the A5 pentapeptide. This binds to the human brain. So this led, this observation that, for the most part, by the way, was not made much of. You didn't hear much talk about that in the 70s. Well, this led to a whole series of research where people asked, well, gee, if that's true, if wheat is an opiate, what if we give nice people opiate-blocking drugs? Not take away the wheat, doesn't make any money. Let's give them opiate-blocking drugs. So this is a small study where nice, normal people came into a laboratory and they were told, don't eat breakfast. We'll feed you lunch and dinner. Okay? So they come in, they skip breakfast, and they have lunch, and they're told, eat all you want. And if you look in that leftmost bar, that white bar, you'll see they took in about, those are calories, they took in about 1,000 calories. They waited several hours and then had dinner. And they're told, go ahead, eat all the dinner you want. And they ate about 800 calories. So about 1,800 calories. Well, these same nice people are brought back sometime later, some weeks later. This time, same deal, but this time they get an injection of a drug called naloxone. Anybody who works in an ER or a hospital has used Narcan, naloxone, to reverse unintentional overdose on morphine, for instance. It blocks the drug's effect within seconds. So it's an opiate-blocking drug. So you give these people an injection of Narcan or naloxone, and they're told, go ahead, have all the lunch you want. Well, this time they eat about 700 calories for lunch. And then for dinner, about 700 calories for lunch, or about 1,400 calories over the course of the day, or approximately 400 calories less after injection of an opiate-blocking drug. Okay? So, wouldn't you know, someone is enterprising on this. The FDA application was made about 2 years ago, still pending, for the drug naltrexone, which is the oral equivalent of naloxone. It's an opiate-blocking drug. And in the clinical trials, it reduces calorie intake by about 400 calories per day, and people lose about 26 pounds over the first 6 months. These are non-heroin addicted, non-morphine addicted. These are just normal, everyday people who have a weight problem, and they're brought in, they're given this drug, and they lose weight, even though they're not addicted to opiates, at least not the kind you take the drug form. Well, this is not proof of cause-effect, but I find it very, very interesting. If you look at what's happened to Americans, North Americans, since this stuff made it to your store shelves. So this thing was invented in the 70s. You saw Borlaug getting the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970, but it really didn't reach your store shelf till about 82 to 85 or so, okay? But by 1985, everything you bought came from
we have that
bread.
to deal with. Wheat Belly. You can YouTube it. I believe I have it on my YouTube channel as well. But now the electricity part.
Hi, I'm Anand from Earthing Oz, and today we're going to do a few experiments measuring the electrical voltage that's in our bodies in different environments, just to get a picture of really how much EMFs are affecting our body. It's something that you can't normally see or feel unless you're particularly sensitive, but with a simple multimeter today we're going to test the voltage in my body in different environments to see how it changes. I've been into health and nutrition and exercise for many years now, and I really value my health, and I do have concerns about being in highly electrified fields or near mobile phones, Wi-Fi and things like that, and the effect it's possibly having on my body. So I'm looking at the best ways I can find to minimize EMFs. So with the multimeter, I'm just going to turn it on to volts. That's a little V symbol there. You can do this experiment yourself at home. It's a very interesting one to see how many volts your body's taking on. If I click the mode button, I'm going to change it. You'll see it's on DC. I'm going to change it to AC because that's the current that our buildings and houses have. Now, it's got two wires coming out of it. It doesn't matter which you use, the black or the red. I've got one with a little alligator clip going into this extension lead, which is then connecting into the ground via an earthing rod. So this is an earthing rod you can use to earth your products, your earthing products. It's exactly the same one. And what we're going to do is I'm going to grab the end of this to see what my voltage is. Now we're out in the back garden. We're not close to any major electrical fields, and my voltage is very low. It's 0.06, and that's even with rubberized shoes on. I've got some old sandals on with rubber heels, soles on them. And now I'm going to kick the sandals off just as an experiment to see if there's any difference. I'm personally not concerned about having a body voltage of 0.05 or 6. It's not too bad at all. So I kick my shoes off, it goes to 0.004. It's not really a big difference and not a big deal when you're out in nature. So this is really what the human body is meant to be at. It's meant to be at a very low voltage, very close to Earth. But what I'm concerned about is when I go inside or I'm standing near power lines, what's going to happen to the voltage in my body. So let's go and have a look at that. So now I've changed location. I'm out the front of my house and I'm standing under power lines. So is it possible for these power lines to, through induction, send electricity into my body? We're going to find out in a moment. So I've got my multimeter, I'm going to hold the end of it, and I'm at like 0.6. So my body has now got, instead of being 0.006, we're at 0.6. So that's a lot more electricity coming into my body simply by standing under these power lines. So if we look up at the power lines, we're going to see there's a transformer box. I'm standing almost directly underneath power lines, and my voltage is 0.6 as opposed to 0.006. So it's nearly 100 times more voltage in my body simply by standing here. Now just to show you an example of being earthed, I've got my rubber-soled shoes on. I'm going to kick them off. And now look at my voltage. It's back down to 0.014 on bare feet. I put on my rubber-soled shoes. And now it's gone up to very close to 1 volt. 0.9 volts. I kick off my shoes again. Back down to 0.009 volts this time. So that just shows you the effect, the difference between wearing rubber-soled shoes, which nearly all of us do, and being barefoot on the earth. Now, I've got some concrete here too. Let's do an experiment with that. I'm going to stand on concrete. It goes up to 0.02, so I'm still being earthed quite a bit. I was almost at 1 volt in my rubber-soled shoes, but on concrete I'm being earthed quite nicely to 0.017. Not quite as good as the grass, but concrete is conductive, so walking barefoot on concrete will earth you. Over here we've got bitumen, road paving. This is synthetic, and technically it won't earth me. If you look here, my voltage has jumped up to 1.3 volts. It's actually higher than even being in rubber shoes. So I'm on bitumen, 1.3 volts. I'm on concrete. We go down to 0.02 volts. Now onto grass, 0.013. So now we've demonstrated being outside in different environments, being away from power lines, on the grass or in rubber shoes, the difference in the voltage in my body, being under power lines, on concrete, grass and on bitumen. So as you can see, the amount of voltage in our body changes dramatically depending on what we're standing on. Being in rubber shoes, we're insulated the whole time, so they're possibly a health hazard. In the old days we used to wear leather shoes, everything was leather soled. Leather is actually conductive, it's a natural product, it gets a bit of moisture in it, it conducts electricity. So more than ever before we're being insulated from the earth, for one, so we're not getting the negative ions coming up from the earth into our body, which has an antioxidant effect. And at the same time we're not able to discharge EMFs that are just in our environment from power lines and places like that. So what's the problem with that? Research is beginning to indicate that our cells, which are like little batteries, we've got trillions of cells in our bodies, that each one is like a little battery with a small amount, we're talking millivolts, we're talking a very small amount of current in our body, is very sensitive to these external forces of man-made electricity. And it's looking like there may be links between things like leukemia, brain tumours, and also the production of melatonin, which affects our sleep, is being interfered with by EMFs. So personally, I'm wanting to keep my voltage as low as possible for as long as possible. And this is what this video is about. It's about first measuring the voltage in our body and then finding ways that we can lower it. So now we're going to go inside and see what sort of EMF fields we're going to find inside the house. So now we've come into my office and I want to measure what the voltage is in my body while I'm sitting at my desk. So I've got my multimeter again. We've got it set to AC on the volts. This end I grab hold of. The other end now, because we're not outside, to earth it, I've got it going through, we've got this US adapter. This is a splitter plug which goes into the earth. You don't need this turned on, by the way. This just goes directly into the earth in our PowerPoint. Got that connected there. And now if we come back, I'm going to grab this electrode and we'll see what my voltage is. We're at 0.6 of a volt at the moment. Actually, we're at about 0.8 of a volt. I'm barefoot at the moment and it's well over 100 times more voltage than what I had in the back garden when I was out of EMF fields. So we're talking 100 times more voltage in my body sitting at my desk. So obviously I can't go barefoot and earth myself unless I'm on a concrete floor. I've got a synthetic carpet. I will get a little bit of grounding through that. Let's just I'm going to move my feet off this plastic here, which is totally insulating me, onto the carpet. And let's just see what that does to my voltage. There is concrete underneath this. We get a slight drop. It goes down to 0.5 of a volt, half a volt. Back onto the plastic, up to 0.7. So it's a minimal amount of earthing happens when I put my feet onto this synthetic carpet, which is just sitting directly on top of concrete. Okay, it's still way too high for my liking. So what can we do?
Okay, I want to throw in there Dirty Electricity. It's a book. Very interesting. It talks about ground current. Get it checked before you do this. Because ground current
Yourself in your office is through earthing mats or earthing mouse pads. Now if you have a look at my desk here, this is an earthed mouse pad. Again, it's got a lead to it, which is also going into the earth of the PowerPoint. So again, I'll grab the end of the electrode. My voltage is 0.78 at the moment. It jumps around a little bit and it will vary. If you do this experiment at home, you might find it's completely different, the EMF fields in or the electricity in your body. Now I'm going to touch this with my little finger, this earthed pad, and see what happens. It drops me down to 0.1. Take my finger off, up to about 0.8. So it's about an 8-fold difference in the voltage in my body just by putting my little pinky there. Now if I put my whole hand on, we're going right down to 0.05. Hand off, 0.8. Hand on, 0.05. So if we're using just a mouse pad, just having our wrist resting there, we're down at around 0.5, 0.6. And it's a really simple way of being earthed. Now, under my desk, I also have this universal pad. Again, they're both made from this carbonized rubber. It's highly conductive material. With the pad, you can either have it on your desk under your mouse, so you know your hands are resting on it, or you can have it under your feet. The reason I like to have it under my feet in summer when I'm not wearing shoes is because the feet are the most conductive part of our body. So electrically we're going to get most earth if we can have our feet, both our feet, planted on one of these mats. So let's have a look. We're on, what's that? I'm touching the pad. We're on 0.7 if I'm not earthed. And I put both my feet flat on this and we come down to 0.47. So it's even lower than me having my hand on the mouse pad. So feet off the mat, we're up to 0.8 of a volt. Feet on the mat, we're down to 0.04 of a volt. So that's just a really simple way. You can earth yourself when you're sitting at your computer, you're in an electrical field. And I just want to show you another little experiment with wires. Now on this plug here, this power board has got a lead coming to it. Now if I grab hold of that, I'm just going to put the multimeter next to it so you can see what happens. Alright, so my voltage, I'm going to make sure I'm not touching anything that's earthing me. So right now, my voltage is about 0.9. It's almost 1 volt. I'm going to move my hand closer. As it gets closer, look at that. I'm not even touching it. It's doubled. It's gone up to 1.8 volts without even touching it. Now I grab the lead. I'm up to 8 volts. So massive difference. So most of us, I don't know about you, but I have a spaghetti of these wires and power boards for all my devices right at my feet. Let go. So you can just see electricity isn't confined to the wires. It is radiating out into our bodies. Alright, so I'm going to grab onto that and now I'm going to put my feet on the earthing mat. So it goes from 9 volts down to 0.1 volt. I'll take my feet off the earthing mat, up to 9 volts, on the earthing mat, down to 0.1 volt. So you can see that's a pretty dramatic difference, being earthed or not being earthed, to the level of voltage in my body. We're highly conductive beings, electrical beings. I certainly don't want, these EMFs in my work environment, my home environment affecting me, so really happy to have these earthing products. We're going to go upstairs now and do some more experiments because the further you get away from the earth, the higher the voltage goes. So let's go and have a look at that. So now on the first floor of a building, this is our home, and I want to know what the current in my body is going to be on the first floor because I've heard that it goes much higher. So I've got my multimeter earthed, plugged into the earth socket down here, and I'm going to grab the other end. Wow, my voltage is 12 volts. I'm 12 volts up here. That's like more than 10 times what I was on the ground floor. Well over 10 times the voltage I was on the ground floor. So if you're living in high-rise, or even on the first floor of a building, you're going to be at a high voltage, and it's even more important to get earthed the higher up you get. I've got an earthing mat here, so let's just see what happens when I step on it. So step on the earthing mat. We're going down to 0.1 of a volt. 0.1, I step off it. Back up to 12 volts, onto the earthing mat, down to 0.1 of a volt. So, staying earthed is, as far as I'm concerned, very important. I feel much better when I walk barefoot on the earth, on the beach and things like that. I've known that for years. But now science is starting to show why. We're actually getting negative ions coming up into our body, obviously from the earth, which makes us feel good, helps eliminate free radicals. And also, we're discharging electricity that's come in from our, modern environment. So welcome to my bedroom. This is another place we spend a lot of time. Is in bed, at least 8 hours a night, most of us. Now, what most people have in their bedroom is they have a PowerPoint right here next to their head on either side of the bed, and there's also an electrical lead running right behind in the wall, right behind here. I'm going to show you in another experiment, another video using a Gauss meter, how this electrical field actually radiates out right to where our head is while we're sleeping. So I think it's particularly important for myself to be earthed while I'm sleeping in an electrical field such as this. So again, I've got my multimeter. I've got it earthed through a PowerPoint, and I'm going to see what my voltage is just standing on the floor in the bedroom. It's a massive 15 volts. This is the highest reading that I've had outside, inside, anywhere. I'm at 15 volts standing on the bedroom floor.
Okay, I want to stop it right there. Okay, I know this has been long. I'm glad you guys stuck through it. So, the idea is this. Anybody got any money out there that wants to do some good, or wants to donate, or, you know, wants to make an impact that will last forever, and it will forever. Free food forest for all in all states, then the whole world, more and more and more. No 60 hertz, or just one, just to see on how many people get healthier. No 60 hertz, no Wi-Fi, distilled water, fruits and vegetables. And I want to add on the fruits and vegetables, these are living things, and they will actually be healthier for not having 60 hertz and Wi-Fi around it. Reason why I say that, if I could find it, which, oh wait, I can't find it. No, yeah, I can. Maybe, I don't know. If you type in smart meter shrubs dying, shrubs around smart meters are dying. That is Wi-Fi. Okay, I'm going to leave you with one more thing. This guy, I don't know why he did it, but I'm glad he did it, because it shows you compelling information.
So here I am playing Neopong with my head, and I have my hand on the mouse, but that's entirely unnecessary. Now, something that I've always wondered about.
Okay, wait. Before he goes into it, because he's doing it in a different tone, I just want to add this. Instead of saying government listening to your head or whatever, let's just say what's been stated already. MIT stated that they can manipulate the body with radio waves. That's what they state. MIT. Not me. MIT. I don't know. I was trying to be silly. But no, they really did state that. But, like I said, even though it's hard, flight, fright, and stare. Stay out of it. Go do something fun. Okay. Oh, yeah. And we'll be talking about sex later, too. Just a word. I'd like to replace that word, because sex has been so messed up. They use that word, and it's got different tones. Let's replace it with heal. Healing. That's what it is. Okay, let's watch this, because this opens up a whole new world on why they make stuff that blocks EMF. It's the reason why when you get an X-ray, that guy goes behind a big giant brick wall, because there's microwaves. All right, now this is something else.
Those crazy guys who wear tinfoil hats. And the claim has always been to me that that will block the government satellites from reading your mind. So I designed an experiment to test once and for all whether a tinfoil hat can truly block out the government's brainwave reading satellites. This is the tinfoil hat that I will be wearing. Now, bearing in mind, this is aluminum foil because it's pretty tough to get tin foil these days. All right, and then I will be using the NIA's mind wave reading ability to test my hypothesis that an aluminum foil hat will prevent the government from reading your thoughts. So, what we're going to do for this experiment is we are first going to install the NIA and then run the biometric scan that is part of the setup wizard for the NIA. So, here we go. Remember, this is the NIA Plus, not the regular NIA that's available on the market right now. Okay, so it is now officially installed. And we're going to rerun our scan here. Is the aluminum positioned between the NIA and my head? Okay, we got to move the NIA up a little bit. That's fine, that's fine. I can dig it. Okay, how are we doing for installation now? We good? We're good. Okay, so here we go. Now we find out once and for all whether those guys are crazy or not. Scan in progress. The scan was successful. However, the truth, as usual, lies somewhere between the tinfoil hat blocking the mind waves and the tinfoil hat not blocking it. So maybe they're not so crazy after all. There seems to be some truth to this. You see, the scan was successful, and we are getting little jumps of brain activity here. Okay? But we're not getting nearly the same level of activity that we would get without the tinfoil hat installed. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the tinfoil hat. Okay? So here's my tinfoil hat, Exhibit A. And we are going to reinstall the NIA with no tinfoil hat and observe the difference in the relaxation range. Here we go, scan in progress. So now you see my relaxation is much lower because I was not able to successfully block OCZ or the government or whoever is trying to read my brainwaves from reading them. So thank you for checking out this NCIX Tech Tips on brainwaves and whether or not the government can monitor them.
Well, I thought that was kind of interesting. Trying to think if I have anything more else to add to this. I know it's getting kind of long, but I think we got a good basis. So, Wi-Fi free, 60 hertz free, distilled water, you got better fruits and vegetables there, a free dwelling, and then you got less wear and tear on the earth, and then you get to find out on what really is making us sick. And, oh yes, and I was going to go over on the sex part. And that would be the book that you would want to look for. I think it comes up pretty, oh yeah, that comes up nice and clear. Look up this guy's name, get to know him, Google him, look up we'll do a small clip if I can find it. And guess what? I think yes I did find it. We'll watch a small clip of this, if I can find it. Yep, man's right to know. Because this part's important on, Okay, see if I can get closer to it.
And which extends itself over the memory traces of an idea, like an electric charge over the surface of the body. But as the years passed, Freud and his followers diluted much of this concept, reducing the libido to little more than a psychological energy or idea. By 1925, Freud had concluded that the libido theory may therefore, for the present, be pursued only by the path of speculation. Reich's clinical observations, however, demonstrated that sexual energy was more than just an idea, and that sexual satisfaction, in fact, alleviated neurotic symptoms. He discovered that the function of the orgasm is to maintain an energy equilibrium by discharging excess biological energy that builds up naturally in the body. If that discharge function is disturbed, as it proved to be in all his patients, this energy continues to build up without adequate release, stagnating and fueling neurotic disorders. Reich's orgasm theory set him apart from his colleagues because it indicated that the libido was a real physical energy that possibly might be measured quantitatively. His clinical work also led to new therapeutic techniques designed to discover and eliminate any impediments to the flow and discharge of this energy. But the widespread existence of human misery forced Reich to conclude that the solution to the problem of neuroses was not treatment, it was prevention. You have to revamp your whole way of thinking, said Reich, so that you don't think from the standpoint of the state and the culture, but from the standpoint of what people need and what they suffer from. Then you arrange your social institutions accordingly. Freud, on the other hand, maintained that culture takes precedence, that sexual instincts must be adapted to the existing social structure. These conflicting positions led to an eventual break between Reich and Freud. In Vienna and later in Berlin, Reich devoted much of his time and money educating working-class people about the essential role of sexuality in their lives. I had 6 clinics in Vienna, said Reich, where people came and received advice once or twice a week. To provide medical and educational help was its purpose. To reach the greatest number of people, he worked within the socialist and communist parties. He exacted a high price during feelings of unpleasure. From this, Reich concluded that pleasure is the movement of biological energy toward the periphery of the organism, while anxiety is the movement of this energy toward the center. He assumed this energy to be electrical. But was it? And did similar energy processes exist in more basic life forms? Reich discovered that under certain conditions, sterilized and unsterilized substances, such as grass, blood, sand, charcoal, and foodstuffs, disintegrate into pulsating vesicles that exhibit a bluish color. He called these vesicles bions. Reich observed internal motility in the bions, an effect of energy. He also found that certain bions revealed a strong radiation phenomenon, seen here as a white field around the organism, and that these bions could kill bacteria and cancer cells. This radiation confirmed the existence of an energy that did not obey any known laws of electricity or magnetism. Reich called this energy orgone because its discovery had evolved from his investigation of the orgasm function, and because this energy could charge organic matter. When he published his findings, the scientific and psychiatric communities responded with a vicious year-long attack in the Norwegian press. In the wake of this response, and the inevitability of a Second World War, Reich began to look to America as the future home for his work. Energy reflected outward by the metal layers, energy attract the atmosphere.
Okay, this will explain the Oregon accumulator on how to build it. Now, not based on me, but based on this thing. People were writing poems about this thing, about how good it made them feel. So if anybody's got any money, put a link down below and I will help you build this. And let's see if we can cure some cancer in some children for real. That's what he was using this for. Even though some of the poems ain't about that, that's what it was used for. So let's check it out. Get your mind out of the gutter. Damn it.
On the basis of these experiments, Reich constructed small boxes with alternating layers of organic and metallic materials, with the inner walls lined with metal. The organic layers attract the atmospheric orgone energy, which is then directed inward by the metal layers. Any energy reflected outward by the metal layers is reabsorbed by the organic material, attracted back to the metal and directed toward the inside of the box. The result, a higher concentration of orgone energy inside the box. The more layers, the higher the concentration. This accumulation of energy can be verified in a variety of ways. For example, a constant temperature difference exists between the air above the box and in the surrounding air, contradicting the second law of thermodynamics. There also exists a slower electroscopic discharge rate in the higher orgone concentration within the box. These layered boxes, known as orgone energy accumulators, became a valuable tool in Reich's scientific and medical research. Initially, they were used to observe visual manifestations of orgone energy within the enclosure, and to test the effects of orgone radiation on cancer mice. Because his results with cancer mice were so promising, Reich decided to test the effects of orgone radiation on human subjects. He constructed orgone energy accumulators that were large enough for a person to sit in, and in 1942, he began experimental treatments with cancer patients. They were all terminal cases. Reich promised no cure and charged no money. Over a period of time, the patients showed marked improvement, relief of pain, healthier blood condition, weight gain, and the shrinkage and elimination of tumors. Despite these positive results, the patients died, reinforcing Reich's conviction that cancer is a bioenergetic shrinking following emotional resignation, and that the tumors themselves are not the disease, but merely a local manifestation of a deeper systemic disorder. Once again, Reich's focus became prevention. Reich also discovered that water and high humidity absorb and hold orgone energy, making it difficult to carry out experimental work in New York City during the summer. In 1940, on a camping trip to New England, Reich discovered the Rangeley Lakes region in Maine. With its low humidity and clean air, it provided an ideal environment for his work. In 1942, Reich purchased an old farm bordering on a small lake. He continued to develop new ways to visualize, measure, and harness orgone energy from the atmosphere. The cloudbuster, for example, was an experimental instrument that could affect weather patterns by altering concentrations of orgone energy in the atmosphere. A set of hollow metal pipes and cables inserted into water creates a stronger orgone energy system than that in the surrounding atmosphere. Water, which strongly attracts and absorbs orgone, draws the atmospheric energy through the pipes. This movement of orgone from a lower to a higher energy system was used by Reich to create clouds and to dissipate them. In 1953, during a long drought that threatened the Maine blueberry crop, several farmers offered to pay Reich if he could bring rain to the parched region. The Weather Bureau had forecast no rain for several days when Reich began his cloud-busting operations. 10 hours later, a light rain began to fall. Over the next few days, close to 2 inches fell. The blueberry crop was saved.
So, I'm going to go back to the thing on words. Now he's saying orgone I could easily say prana, mana, chi, your spirit, your soul, all different types of stuff. But the fact remains is I don't have the stuff to test this stuff, but it can be built. It's in his book. I don't know if anybody wants to build a free food forest like this. Let me know. I don't know. I think it'd be a win-win. It really is. I mean, it's got to help. I mean, if plants are dying with being next to a Wi-Fi meter, even though, yeah, we could debate and go through a bunch of stuff on that. I mean, testing it and having truth. But, you know, certain things have been stated, you know, especially being electrical first. I mean, you've seen that water, it's dark green. I don't know if you ever did a liver flush at all, but when that comes out, it's dark green. So, you know, that's something I experienced, so it's something that I can, you know, put my signature on, and it is the exact same color. Herta Clark liver flush. I'm trying to find it, but I can't. But that's what it's called. If you go on my YouTube channel, Brian Schchaar, BrianSchaar, if you go on there, you will find it on there. And there's two of them. There's one, Dr. Herta Clark's liver flush, explaining how to do it. And then there's one second, or Herta Clark's, or I think it just says liver flush, second Herta Clark liver flush, I think. But it shows you the size of what these stones are. I mean, it's just immaculate. And I do have it somewhere in one of my documents, but fluoride. Fluoride, the first place it was dumped was Lake Michigan. So I hope this gets out, maybe not right away, but at least it's out there. This is something that I think all our money should go towards, just to see the results, because I know they're going to be huge. Even to have a place where a family can go just to eat with no 60 hertz, no Wi-Fi. You can have that all shielded. I'll leave you with a website. It's not mine. It's called Wi-Fi, or EMF for less, it's called. Or just type in EMF shielding. You'll find it. There's Mu Metal. They have canopies. They have all this stuff. I don't make any money on any of this stuff. I'm on a fixed income. I really do need money, though. But here nor there, I want to leave you with, I don't want to say power, but I want to leave you with the keys. There you go. I want to leave you with the keys on taking care of this, if you want to take care of it, just for your own house. They do make canopies. Stuff is not cheap at all. There's silver that's woven in these fibers, and you can test it. They do work. They do work. The treetop tester, which is a Wi-Fi tester, you can purchase these. These are expensive units. They're like $800. I think the cheapest one is $200. And you can see on how much it's actually given out, and put this fabric over it and watch it go way down. That is something I can hold on to. So, even though I'm sounding like a record, I'll break it down again. Free food forest, no 60 hertz, no Wi-Fi, distilled water for the whole facility, for their washing, for their food. Because when you use tap water and you put it in water and you boil it, you just make it more concentrated, plus you breathe in volatile chemicals. If you want to see what's in there, not for me, this is something I do know. Look at your water thing, and it will tell you all the things that are in it and what they can't remove, because they don't want to get sued. Another one would be Flow, For the Love of Water. Great documentary. But then again, got to go back to the 3 stages: flight, fright, and stare. It is very sad. Watch those tones in those films. Those that music there is to change your tone, to make you go down. Don't go down too far. Yep. Alright. That's about all I got. Free food for us, because our children come from the land. From the sun that beats down on the face of the earth and gives life to all. The trees, the plants, animals, us. And then we have dinner, and then we make love, and then we have something more to love. It all comes back from the sun. So in essence, we are all a beam of light, and we all do come from the land. Well, this is Brian. I'm out.